Today, we'll unpack random forests, which is essentially a bunch of decision trees working together. A single tree can be jumpy. A forest averages many trees to stabilize predictions. By the end, you'll know what a random forest is, how it turns many small votes into one reliable prediction, how to quickly check if it's doing a good job using the rows each tree didn't see, and a few simple settings that make it work well on your data. Welcome to AI Club Pro, where we make AI concepts feel like everyday ideas. Before we jump into the topic, let's back up and spend a minute on the premise this works on. Machine learning learns patterns from a training dataset that consists of features and labels. Once a model learns the patterns, it is ready to make predictions. You provide the model with the features and it predicts the label. Decision trees split data with simple rules. If you're not sure about how a decision tree works, watch our video on decision trees that is also provided in the description of this video. Random forest is basically many decision trees trained on slightly different views of the data and then combined. With this as a background, let's dive into the random forest algorithm. Decision trees are simple, fast, and explainable. But a single tree has high variance. High variance means small changes in the training data cause big changes in the model's predictions. Random forests fix that by training many diverse trees and averaging them. If individual trees are reasonably good but not identical, averaging cancels out their noise and reduces variance. Here's how building a random forest works. We build several decision trees to make the forest. Note that all these trees need to be different from each other. Otherwise, what's the point of having so many trees? It's this very process of having different trees is what helps to get a better prediction. It's like having several different perspectives of patterns in the data. There are three ingredients to how these trees are built. One is bootstrap sampling, two is feature randomness, and three is growing trees deep without pruning. To explain how these ingredients work, we'll use a sample dataset. Bootstrap sampling works by sampling the training rows with replacement. So you could run bootstrap sampling 3 times, resulting in 3 different versions of the dataset. Some rows repeat, some rows are left out. The left out rows are out of bag for that version of the dataset. You would then proceed to build 3 different decision trees from this. This helps because each tree sees a slightly different slice of the data, which makes the trees different from one another. The second ingredient is feature randomness. At each node, when the decision tree splits, instead of considering all the features, it selects a subset of the features. Note that this subset can be different at different nodes within the same tree. This prevents trees from becoming identical and further increases variety. The third ingredient is about growing the trees to be deep and not pruning them. Each tree is allowed to fit its bootstrap sample tightly, with simple limits like minimum leaf size. A single deep tree can be wobbly, but averaging many different deep trees produces a steady prediction. When you use random forest to do classification, like in this case where you're trying to predict if a given fruit is an apple or an orange, each tree in the forest predicts it to be either an apple or an orange. The forest prediction is the majority vote, and the vote fraction can be treated like a rough probability. When you train the random forest model, like any other machine learning model, you have certain knobs you can tune as a user to tweak how it learns. These are called hyperparameters. They're not learned from the data. They're settings you choose before training. To explain the hyperparameters we are using, we use the names given in the Python package scikit-learn. But the idea is universal. Other libraries might use slightly different names. N underscore estimators, which is the number of trees, tells you how big the forest is. Max underscore features tells you how many features a node is allowed to consider when it picks a split. Min underscore samples underscore leaf is the smallest number of rows allowed in a leaf. A bigger value here can make the leaves smoother and less noisy. Tuning just means trying a few sensible values for these and picking the ones that score the best. This brings us to the question of how you score these models, particularly a random forest model. It turns out that random forest lends itself to all the usual ways to score a model and something a little extra. Random forests use all the usual model evaluation setups and then a built-in extra thing called out of bag OOB scoring. In general, when you want to evaluate any machine learning model, we know that we split the data into several different parts. So there's a train set, which is what, in this case, the random forest model is going to learn from. There is a validation set which we are going to use to tune the hyperparameters like number of estimators, max features, etc. The model does not learn on the split, but it's scored intermediately, and then you try to improve this. And this is called tuning. And separately, there is a test set which is kept sealed until the very end. It's used once to report the final score. Sometimes you'll see that cross-validation is used, usually when the data is small, and splitting the small dataset might result in a performance value that depends on which samples happen to land in validation. In such a case, k-fold cross-validation is used on the training portion. Here's how it works. You divide the dataset into k-folds. Let's say k is 5 for our purpose. You train on k-1 folds and score on the held out fold. You repeat this k times and then average the metric. And in this case, you essentially pick the hyperparameters that have the best average cross-validation score. Then retrain on all the training data and evaluate just once on the test set. This is the usual way. However, in case of random forest, there's something extra that you can do. Each tree trains on a bootstrap sample, which means it leaves out approximately 37% of the rows. So for any row, you can predict using the trees that did not see it. And then you aggregate the votes or you average across the predictions of all these trees. The overall correctness across all the rows is the out-of-bag score. Use out-of-bag to tune hyperparameters quickly without carving out a separate validation split, but then still keep a final test set for your one-time honest report card. In general, always remember that you do not peek at the test set while tuning. Otherwise, the test becomes validation. In addition to this, a random forest model also has the ability to tell you which features are the most important ones that help with making the predictions. Random forests can rank features in two simple ways. One is split-based importance, which is typically a built-in method, and the other one is permutation importance. In split-based importance, every time a feature is used to split a node, the forest measures how much that split reduces impurity, which could be Gini or mean square error. It adds up those reductions for that feature across all trees. It then normalizes so that the sum of these importance scores is equal to 1, and a bigger number means it's more important. A good thing about it is that it is fast and comes built in with implementations like scikit-learn. A disadvantage of this method is that some features might have many possible splits happening just because of high cardinality, and hence the algorithm overfavors these features. The second method is the permutation importance method. It takes validation or out-of-bag score as the baseline. Then shuffle the feature values and score again and see how much the metric drops. A large drop means that the feature mattered a lot. You can repeat and average the metric for stability. A good thing about this method is that it is model agnostic and more faithful. A bad thing about it is that correlated features can share credit and each may look less important alone. In the real world, random forests are a dependable workhorse for tabular data. They are quick to get working, need only light prep like simple encoding and imputation. They can handle mixed feature types, outliers, and messy boundaries without fuss. On many problems, a well-set forest with hundreds of trees, a sensible max features, and a small minimum samples per leaf lands close to the best models with far less tuning. That's why teams often use it as a strong baseline. It's reliable, stable, and a great first pass before trying fancier methods. Limitations to keep in mind are that a random forest is less interpretable than a single tree. The model can be large and slow at inference as you add trees. Feature importance based on impurity can be biased towards high cardinality features. And in such cases, it's preferable to use permutation importance instead. Ensemble algorithms like random forest cut variance. There are other boosting algorithms which are also based on decision trees like XGBoost that work by attacking residual errors in sequence. These are helpful in trimming bias by learning from the leftover errors. We'll cover this algorithm in the next video. So that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on AI Club Pro. Hit that subscribe button for more eye-opening AI stories and insights. Stay curious and keep exploring.